Come on, baby. You can do it.
Live.
There, we're live.
We're live. That was a quick intro. Welcome. We are live. I love that. I thought, should I do the intro? Then I thought, John, don't play with fire.
Hold on, I'm waiting for YouTube to actually start. There it goes. All right, here we are. All right, now we're live.
IG is lit up. Yeah, YouTube is lit up. All right, yeah. Sorry, everybody. We were told there was you guys were using too much bandwidth out there. Stop it. So, but we are live. Hold on, let me make sure we're good to go on. Let me just make sure we're good to go on all the platforms. So. I got one error. Hold on. And it is Twitter. Created live broadcast on their platform. Please. Okay, great. So Twitter now is requiring a Premiere subscription. So
I'll take care of Twitter. Don't worry about Twitter.
Yeah. But we are live. We're live on Instagram. We're live everywhere, and we're live behind me up there. Yeah, so we're good to go. Everybody, welcome to the show. Sorry about that, but we are back. Like I said, we were having some issues. It said the internet was too busy for us to jump on, but we're here. And joining us tonight is Dianne Goldstein. We've got a lot to talk about with Dianne Goldstein. So.
Dianne,
I'm sorry. I'm
Phillip, not Phil. That's Dianne.
I know Dina. Who you are.
Okay, let's all get that straight.
He's used to another Dina. That's why.
I am used to Dina. That's why I am used to my Dina. That's my co-host on the other show. But we're all here. Tim is here, and Michelle is here, and Phillip is here. And I don't see any movement on YouTube. Do you guys see movement on YouTube, Tim?
We're moving. I see our heads moving, so that must be a good sign.
Okay.
John, do you want me to turn off my cell phone and see if
No, we're good. No, we're good. Yeah, no, I didn't see any movement, anybody moving around on my end on my screen. But Johnny is tired, and he didn't realize that he's streaming it to the TV behind him, so that's why it's not moving on my screen. So,
my apologies to everyone ahead of time.
I swear I have not had any alcohol yet. I had to work tonight, so let's say hello, Timmy.
Yes.
How's your week?
It's been busy. Lots of work, but we're trying to squeeze in fun stuff. So I will share one of my experiences this past weekend. So putting concerts aside, did enjoy Journey and Def Leppard very much. Wonderful concert. Nice. Looking at me, you'd be like, you've never seen Journey and Def Leppard before? That's true. I have not. So now there's two more off the bucket list. Then a few days later, we went and we saw Styx and Foreigner and John Waite. So I ticked off 3 more. Nice. So 5 in 1 week is not that bad. But that was, for me, I think the highlight was something that wasn't concert related. So ended up going downtown to a place in Atlanta called the Illuminarium. And they have an exhibit right now in Atlanta called Horizons of Khufu. Now, yeah, that's not a food or anything like that. Don't worry. Some weird food that you've never eaten that they put a blindfold on you and they go, here, try this Khufu. But no, what it is, it's a virtual reality experience where basically you get to take a complete tour and get a historical lesson about the pyramids from Egypt and how they were constructed, how the mummification process takes place, but it's all virtual reality. So it's not like a real world, right? So any you nerds out there that are familiar with virtual reality, it's not cartoonish, but you've seen video games before. But hold on, they add another layer of coolness to it all. So not only is it virtual reality, but you can team up, right? So if you go with a party, 2 or 3 or 4 people, however many you bring to your party, when you put on the VR headset, anybody that's in your party, and you get to make up your screen name, you can be whoever you want in there. You don't have to be your own name. But everybody in your party is in purple. And anybody who's not in your party, but also in the room, is a white character or an avatar. Kind of looks like a mannequin. No face, no definable features. But you get to walk around, which is like the coolest part. So you get your guide, and then your guide starts leading you through the pyramids into different areas, and then you get to go on a boat and some other things while you're walking around. But it's kind of cool. So while you're being guided on a certain path, as you're walking, you see like all these other avatars, like kind of like coming into your field of view, and you're like, oh, that's a real person. So you actually, like, as you're walking, you have to kind of walk around people, even though you can't see anything in real life. All you see is what's in your virtual world. So that lasts 45 minutes. So it's well worth the ticket price to go do that. I hope it makes it to more cities. It's all over the world right now. It's in some major cities right now, but Atlanta is, I think, the only North American state that it's in right now. Might be in New York. Might be in New York.
No, it's going to be in Toronto. It's not there yet, but as far as I know, Atlanta is the only place. I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Amazing.
Yep. I mean, sorry for all you Call of Duty people. I know you would you kind of want to take some people out in the process. But anyway, it's cool. You're like walking around, and you kind of feel like you're really like in these catacombs and in these tombs and stuff like that. So it's well worth the ticket price if you get the chance, or you're visiting Atlanta. Don't come to Hartsfield Jackson. It's pretty much a shithole right now. So
Delta.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely worth it. So yeah, that was my fun experience.
Nice. You had a busy week, Tim. Busy week.
Yeah.
Saw some great bands.
I'm going to ask the question: how many bands are on your bucket list when you started?
Oh
and
God,
go down the list.
You know what, Diane? I never really
possible, right?
I never really kept a running count. I mean, there were always wish list bands.
Sure.
Ironically, some of them came much later in life, just due to life circumstances. But now with getting out and seeing more bands and being involved in festivals and concerts and stuff, you get more and more and more and more, because they start bringing back some of these old retired bands and stuff. You're like, okay, it's not quite the same thing. I mean, let's be realistic. There's not one original member in Foreigner anymore.
No.
So you're basically going and watching a high class tribute band. But
that was the only band I was like, why would you bother? The truth is, Styx, I'm still envy percolates within me. I think the live version of Miss America is something that I rocked to for way too long in my youth.
They played that song. They played that song. Well, but that was the nice part. They did.
Like the hardcore blank write-off version.
Well, I'm not an audiophile when it comes to actual Styx material.
Yeah,
so all I know is that's the song. They did play that song. Tommy Shaw still sounds fantastic. I don't know who the guy is that's not Dennis DeYoung, but sounds exactly like him. Whoever that dude is, phenomenal. The guy with the keyboard, and he walks around and plays behind his back and all that stuff. And then they had John Young is still in the band, the one of the other original members. So you get two of those. So yeah,
Tommy Shaw is plenty enough for me. I'll be honest.
Class act.
I have a question for everyone.
Yeah.
My first concert when I was, oh my gosh, this was like 1977.
A few years ago.
Yeah, 1977 was the Eagles, Jackson Browne, and Linda Ronstadt at the Inglewood Forum. And then a month later, I saw Kiss. And I just, and growing up in Southern California,
Kiss,
it's in Los Angeles, is we used to ditch school, go hang out at the Roxy, spend 24 hours in line waiting to buy tickets. And so I saw Bruce Springsteen at the Roxy. I saw Peter Gabriel at the Roxy. Wow. I mean, they're just, it is, if I had $1 bazillion, I would be a groupie and I would just go to concerts.
Right? Yeah, we were just talking about that last night at work. I said, you guys don't know what it's like. I mean, we started talking about what it was like getting tickets in the 80s and camping out in front of the record store. And they're like, you guys did what? I was like, yeah, we didn't sit in front of a keyboard and wait for 12,000 to start hitting enter.
Right.
No, we begged our parents. I was a teenager, so hey mom, can I go sleep on the sidewalk in front of a building? And my mom's like, absolutely no. So John snuck out, of course, snuck out, got my tickets. But yeah, they were like, they couldn't believe it that's how we got our tickets back in the day. And I said, yeah, there was no internet for us to sit in front of and wait for midnight to start hitting the enter key and they're like, well, could you buy 10, 15 tickets? I go, no, they didn't do that crap either.
or you knew a guy named Augie or
Yeah.
Ernest and
Yeah.
bought them top dollar at the same place where you got a terrible weed that made you like, really paranoid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, but yeah, I mean, to think Tower Records, right?
Yeah.
We used
What was
to
the
sleep
guy's
in
name
front
in
of
Fast
Tower
Times at
Records.
Ridgemont High that was selling the tickets?
If you
What
have
was the
that-
guy's name? The guy on Fast Times at Ridgemont High that sold the tickets.
Mike Damone.
Mike Damone, baby. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we had a Mike
Mhm.
Damone. Everybody had a Mike Damone. Michelle, how is your week going? I know it's tough following Tim. I hate,
No, you know what? This week I have a really good story.
Good.
And I have a good friend of mine whose husband is military. He had cancer for the third time in 3
Oh.
years. And he's a young man. He's only like 45, 47, something like that. Anyway, he's had a hard time and he walked away again beating cancer.
Nice.
So I got a huge, big, excitement over that because he just knew this was it. Third time, it's the charm, But
Right.
he
Yeah.
walked away and he's good. I mean, he's real good. So
That's amazing.
yeah. So that was my great week.
Yeah, that is a great week.
Yeah.
And our Mr. Phillip, how's your week going, Phillip?
My week is fantastic as always.
Hey, how's your leg, by the way?
It is much improved. Thank you for asking.
Mm.
The thing about post knee surgery is my right leg is in spectacular shape. The rest of me, not so
right.
much. Not so much. But it's a pretty I am absolutely following orders. Never happened before.
What's your
Follow-
40-yard dash time? Just out of curiosity.
4.3. He's running a 4.3, baby.
Hush now, Tim. There is no 40-yard dash today.
They were gonna recruit him. They needed a whiteout for
But no,
over in Alabama.
you realize okay, if you're a vain human being as I am, you quickly learn that you're getting better about all those things when you have a brace or a stabilizer on your left Sinvis knee, and this I don't know, like another gigantic metal brace on your right that was recently operated on for the first time. You're like walking around. You literally look like you have fake legs, and you just didn't give a shit before you went to the grocery store that was the case. So I'm growing here, but thank you for asking. We're doing much better.
Okay.
This week, my job has been Deirdre with the new house. The way it works is this: Deirdre has the eye. She has the has an amazing talent for picking out everything from tables to appliances. Now, when it comes to appliances, she picks them out, and 2 months later, I read the manual to her. Because when you have, for example, if you want something like a GE ice maker, pellet ice maker, those things require a certain amount of maintenance. Otherwise, you just have a very wet floor. And it's important that I get to that. And it's my responsibility to get to that manual's troubleshooting section before the floors are wet. So that's been great. And now I look forward to that first jog where I can start getting my whole self back into shape. But I'm very grateful for the progress I've made. Thanks.
Nice. And Dianne Goldstein, how's your week going?
Well, it's work. It's a crazy busy week. It's hot as heck in Vegas.
Tell me about it.
Oh my God, right? And yeah, because you're in the Central Valley, right, John?
Yeah,
And
110 today.
yeah, so you're as hot as we are right now. So it probably the best investment I made is I put solar in my house, so my electricity bill is only like $19 a month because it's just surcharge.
Wow.
But I feel like I don't go outside during summer. It's like instead of being snowed in, I'm heated in, right? and I don't go out unless I can, start the air conditioned car, and I hate walking into wherever I'm supposed to. So it's brutal, but good, busy, tons of stuff going on. I celebrated a birthday.
Yay.
Well, happy
So
birthday.
last week, which was great. And it made me really reflect on, so much of the stuff and the work that we do and the people that I'm surrounded by. So I'm really honored to be here with you guys, because this still is one of my favorite podcasts to have ever been on. So I appreciate all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, what other podcast is going to bring up Robert Peel?
Sir Robert Peel.
Sir.
If you're going to address the man,
Was he
his
knighted?
knighthood.
Was he knighted?
Yeah, he was.
Well, you gotta be if you get
Okay.
sir. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. I want to make sure
unless
he
he's
was
your
actually
father
knighted.
or your drill sergeant. You know what I mean? You
I
don't
just
get
wanna
too many
make sure.
sirs beyond that.
Yes,
Just
sir
make
would
sure.
indicate a knighthood, John.
Yeah. No, I know that, but I'm asking, was he physically actually knighted, or did
This
just give
was
him?
1821, man. Not
I
like,
know you were there.
BC.
I know you were there. I know you were there. You were standing there watching the whole thing. I know.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
I've been around for a long, long time.
No,
you
long,
know?
long time.
Philip's a vampire. He's aging.
Yeah, Phil's a vampire.
Hey, for everyone, I actually offered to take a day off from Pilates to chauffeur around Phil and Deidre and their son Michael when they come visit Las Vegas. So I will give that same shout out to all of you guys. If you ever visit Vegas, call me so I can take you to the places that don't give you the tourist tax.
Nice,
right?
nice.
I'm
And
currently
trip.
lobbying for an opportunity to tell you to cancel Pilates. So we're gonna get back to you on that. But
No, I'm
just
saying it's okay. I can do it.
Yeah, just keep him away from the casinos, man. I think his face is in the casinos. He's not allowed in there. So just make sure you keep
I am a Sun Devil. I went to school I went to Arizona State University. I don't ever need to go to Vegas and wander into a casino ever again.
Yeah.
We're good there.
I'm like you. I opened the door yesterday, and me and the mailwoman, made eye contact, and I said, "Nope, just put it in the box." Because usually we meet each other halfway, and she'll hand them to me. I opened the door, and I go, "No, just put it in the box. I'll get it at 9-10 o'clock tonight." And she just kind of looked at me like, "Come on, John." But no, it's been ridiculously hot here, and I can't even jump in the pool because there's no shade on the pool.
And it's too hot.
It's 72, 75 degrees, the water, and that's not comfortable, man.
That's bath water.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, being 6'4", I can't sit in a bathtub. So, my legs are sticking out, my arm, I maybe got a quarter of my body actually in the bathtub. So it doesn't help.
I haven't thought about that challenge, John.
It sucks being tall and bathtubs.
You should talk to Deirdre. She has a bathtub for you. She found one. It's you have to decide how much you want that bath.
It's called a hot tub. It's called a hot tub.
The pool here is 84.
Yeah,
That's bath water. That's bath water.
Yeah, your average 10,000 gallon pool is not going to be refreshing in this kind of weather.
No. This one's an acre big, but it's not real deep, so
I could go channel my inner south and just dig a hole in my front yard and really piss off my neighbors and just fill it up with water and sit out there with an iced tea, maybe that'll work.
You say that like it's not an epic, like a revelatory idea.
It's that thing that Tim works for? That HOA stuff, they would be laughing their asses off. Like, no, John, that's not gonna happen, buddy. I could put a koi pond in there, but I don't know if I want to get in the water with koi. I don't think that's gonna work. We are.
They ignore you. They're not.
I'm working on 4 hours sleep. Ms. Goldstein, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let everybody catch up on exactly what you've been doing and what you are. Let me get this right. The things that you are associated with.
Well, I don't know, good or bad. Are there things that I shouldn't be mentioning, right? So, for folks that don't know me, is I was a police officer in Southern California in Redondo Beach from 1983 to 2004. And, it's really interesting when I think about like all our evolutions and journeys and, how did we all manage to intersect back at this place? And, who would have known, like I sure, first of all, couldn't have predicted. I was the last person that people would have ever predicted to be the police officer because I was that wild rebel teenage child that cops chased our crew in the 1970s because we were out, doing things that we shouldn't have been doing back then. But cops treated kids much differently in the 70s, right? A lot of it was learning lessons. It was like, hey, we're taking your beer away. We're bringing you home to mom and dad. We're ripping up your cigarettes. We're, seizing your joints and we're grinding them out in front of you. It just, and it was just a real different. And so I almost didn't get hired as a police officer because I smoked too much pot when I was in high school. And literally, that's what I was told. It was like, hey, we have some real concerns over your extensive drug use. And I'm like, I was a child of the 1970s, right? I quit everything when I graduated high school except for drinking.
Yeah.
And, but I sold my chief back then on why I would be a good police officer. And it was exactly, I think, a lot of the best police officers, the old adage sometimes is, there's not a whole lot of difference between cops and crooks, right?
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that.
And I don't mean that in a way that is insulting to people who become justice impacted or people who go into law enforcement, right? It's about the risk taking. It's about the paths that you wander. It's about how you learn lessons. It's about how you learn to deal with people. And so from high school, I became a food and cocktail waitress, which was really the best, absolutely the best training to be a cop. Unequivocally, hands down, is providing, anyone who wants to go into a service industry, and I'm not talking about the restaurant or the hotel business, I'm talking about being a nurse or a doctor or a cop or a firefighter, should in fact be in the service industry and in the waiter, waitress, entertainment type thing, because it taught me so many valuable skills, which included how to de-escalate drunks, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It made me very social. It got me very comfortable in situations and talking to perfect strangers, because law enforcement, 95% of your job is people skills. And then there's that 5% where things go south and, you're absolutely fearful about, oh man, I may get killed here. Right. And then that's when you rely on your training.
Right.
And so, I had a fabulous career. And for those who know my story, is I had a brother who at the same time was dual diagnosed, and he was even wilder than I was, but I kind of helped raise him. And in 2007, he died from a polydrug overdose after years and years of being a person in recovery. And what happened is he lost his job, and the typical American story is he got in trouble with the criminal justice system, got his act together, a person in recovery for 20 years, working. He was a mechanic. He could fix anything. He worked on tugboats, worked for BMW, just really, really talented person. But he was bipolar and also suffered from substance use disorder. And when he lost his job, he lost access to his healthcare, his behavioral healthcare, lost access to psychotropic meds, lost access to, almost became homeless if it wasn't for my ex-husband and I when he moved in with us. And there was just this spiral, and he started self-medicating again. And then he got back involved in the criminal justice system. And, it really brought home how we use the wrong systems to solve societal problems, right? And, you know, it's Phillip mentioned Sir Robert Peel, but I'm bringing him at least into the, 20th century.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about Police Chief August Vollmer, who's kind of the equivalent of Sir Robert Peel for the English bobbies in the UK. So August Vollmer, and John, you're probably familiar with him because you're a California boy.
Yeah.
University of Berkeley has their criminology department named after him. He was a chief for Berkeley Police Department, and he is widely recognized as almost the father of American policing because he initiated beat cars, traffic cars. He was the first agency, I believe, that mandated a 4-year college education for his cops, right? He believed that an educated police officer could and would better serve their community. And I agree with that, right? And so, but at the same time, he also was very, very insightful and very, very visionary about the work. And he believed very clearly that law enforcement should not be involved in the investigation of moralistic crimes or drug-related crimes. And I'm going to put tobacco bans within this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to, read you a quote, and you could think about, just adding tobacco instead of liquor here. So drug addiction, like prostitution and like liquor, and then I would add, and tobacco products is not a police problem. It never has been. It never has been, never can be solved by policemen. It is first and last a medical problem. And if there is a solution, it will be discovered not by policemen, but by scientifically and competently trained medical experts whose sole objective will be the reduction and possible eradication of this devastating appetite, right? And so what's always, so this is in the 1920s, 1930s.
30s, yeah.
Like the fourth police chief, who was the president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, he helped to overturn alcohol prohibition. He was part of the Wickersham Commission. And what's so amazing about his vision is he really talked a lot about why law enforcement should be involved in this. And it wasn't just that we would never solve this public health issue, was it would engender dissatisfaction between the communities we're supposed to serve and law enforcement. And you look at drug war policing, absolutely. That's one of the biggest problems of the failure of the modern drug war is we have over-policed people that don't look like us who are sitting here, right?
Yeah.
And we have to start acknowledging it. And now when you start thinking about the lack of harm reduction in tobacco products, and I think that we've won the battle on the menthol ban issue right now, but we haven't won the war, so to speak. And I think none of us here who are working on this issue, which tobacco harm reduction is so critically important, it can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue to strategize and talk about the importance of e-cigarettes, vaping, and that the problem right now in the area that we're working on with this is not law enforcement that's being directed to go out and enforce, and raid small businesses.
No.
It's that the FDA hasn't done their job
Right.
and authorized multiple harm reduction products. We should have hundreds out there.
Yeah.
And instead is because of the complexities of our regulatory process, we only have a few. People don't like them. And what we know is no different than the drug war, is people are going to find their product on or off the regulated market.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
this continued emphasis and look at banning e-cigarettes is going to cause more harm than it's going to prevent. I mean, look at what's happening in Australia right now. They got people being firebombed and people being murdered by organized crime over e-cigarettes.
Do you think you think that's the reason the FDA is choosing to have the DOJ and other federal agencies deal with this situation than other than local law enforcement to avoid what is happening in Australia? Because that seems like, not that I think we're going to see similar actions here in the United States, where I mean, I hope to God we don't over vaping, because that's just another, really, that's just
Crazy.
another, it's just another bad look for us as an industry to see that. But is that the reason you think they're using federal agents and agencies to do what local law enforcement should have been doing in the first place, is by regulating some of the laws that are already on the books and going after these shops or vape shops that are actually, or convenience stores that are actually selling to minors?
I think it's complex. I think that there's two issues. There's the national security issues that I think that DOJ and Customs and Border Protection and other federal agencies are looking at relative to the tobacco issue, because of the illicit market that's controlled by drug cartels, right? Organized crime.
Yeah.
And we know for years that organized crime adapts and evolves. And what they're seeing is there's less risk with bringing in illicit, non-regulated tobacco products than there is potentially bringing in, real harmful drugs like fentanyl, or, the continued emphasis on cannabis, human trafficking, those issues. But it's a combination. And in local law enforcement for years, at least in California, I mean, I know we did, is we would run stings all the time on tobacco products for people who were selling to minors, whether it was tobacco or alcohol stings, right? Is we all knew them. But resources are limited. And, I don't think you're going to see DOJ going after small mom and pop, but they're really trying to go after, I think, the big actors. And, we think about what the tobacco, menthol, and flavored market is worth. The last I looked, it's 1/3 of the overall tobacco market. And so the tobacco market is, I think, over 100 billion, and we want to release 1/3 of that over into the illicit market. That's why Australia is having these issues, right?
Well, that and their usurious taxation. It's the ultimate expression of the beatings will continue until morale improves. It's hard.
Absolutely.
But yes, I think a pack of cigarettes in Australia is currently at somewhere around $45. 40.
Are you?
It's crazy. It was 40 when I was going there.
Am I right about that, Tim?
It was 40. It was around 40 Australian. So I don't know about the currency conversion, but I mean, I was still, I'm like, wow, that's an expensive pack of cigarettes. But I think the thing that I did notice is that even with that exorbitant tax product, we were still buying them. We were finding a way to come up with the money. Now, did we bum them to our friends as freely? No. But people were still buying. It didn't matter if they hid them behind a nondescript cabinet. Didn't matter if they put pictures of black lungs and aborted fetuses and all that other crazy stuff to try to deter you. They thought they could get you in the pocket, and we were still going and buying them.
Yeah, I mean, that goes all the way back.
Quick clarification. Now we're looking at roughly 27 American dollars.
Yeah.
US.
Not cheap.
Per pack of 20 cigarettes in Australia.
Yeah.
And that is almost entirely a sin tax. It's out of, and on top of that, they now have rolled out a policy where they are allowing pharmacists to distribute a few awful, apparently, e-cigarettes, and pharmacists without consulting pharmacists, and pharmacists are refusing to do so. It's
Yeah.
just, it almost seems too ridiculous to not be
Yeah.
fiction. All that being said, I really have to say there's nothing. The only thing more powerful than the promise of money is the promise of not being wrong.
Yeah.
I think when it comes,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of hardcore old school big tobacco warrior mentality there. Think of the Simon Chapmans. Those people, thankfully, we don't really have the equivalent of a Simon Chapman here. I have to say our very worst anti-tobacco scientists are not as bad as he is, truly. But
Glance.
you know what, Glance, it's not that he's not trying. I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing his best.
He wants to get up on that podium.
But
Right.
but Chapman, he is actually a very cruel person. He is not a good person. I will say this: he truly has made statements over the years about the nature of the quote unquote tobacco user, now a vaping person who vapes, and he speaks of them like they are an inferior race. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's just awful. Read some of his things, and I wish Dr. Carl Phillips was here. He could give you some specific examples as to why he is the worst public health person in the world.
Yeah.
Which is a blog Carl Phillips wrote.
You know, it's so interesting because, again, let's go back to stigma and shame, right? And how with drugs, right, with the modern day drug war, with unregulated products, not including tobacco, is I see an ideology in America, funded very much so by a bazillionaire, right? And this ideology is incredibly harmful because they portray people as victims.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what about the children, right? The poor victims. Instead, and then they portray adult consumers of products as horrible people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing that he's using the same stigma that law enforcement and the criminal justice system has used against people who use drugs, right? And I've written about it, is if our drug policy, which is critically important, our drug control strategies should have a value associated with them, and that value should be the sanctity of life, right?
Yeah.
In everything we do.
In Australia, we have actual written statements more or less indicating that their policies on tobacco should reflect the fact that smokers will either quit or eventually they'll no longer be around. They'll die, so we don't need to worry about them. Either way, they are the last priority in terms of our policies on combustible tobacco and much reduced risk novel tobacco products, because they're all the same to them. It is we need to protect our future generations, and there have been very literal statements about how there are so few smokers, or that age bracket is old and they're already too far gone, and one day they'll be gone and we won't have to talk about them anymore. And it's horrifying. Deplorable is too soft a word for what it is,
right?
And we've seen that implied here, I imagine, in more ways than we want to get into. But in Australia, it is not implied; it's said.
It's set in stone.
It's been said, yes.
Michelle, do you have a question? Keep you into the. I don't want you. We don't want you to feel like you didn't. We didn't see you there.
No, you know me. I'll butt in if I got one, though. Thank you.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Timmy's leaning in.
I got two things. I got two things. I have a question for Dianne. But can we rewind for maybe a minute and a half? We forgot to do the chat introduction.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. See what happens when I
Yes.
miss.
Son of a
So
bitch.
so in the with respect
Who's running this show?
exactly, I have no idea who that guy is. I can barely see him anyway.
Johnny, I'm so glad you're here with us.
And I'm wearing readers, man. No, so let's back. I just want to acknowledge the people that are in the chat. They show up every week. So real quick, I'm just going to give it a rundown. There's my music. So hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show. Let's do a quick roll call because I know there's been a bunch of you guys in there chatting back and forth. So we got the wonderful Mallory Gates in the house. Always great to see you, Mallory. How are you? We got our Rolling R's Rifleman in the house. Good to see you, Rifleman. How are you, brother? We got the wonderful resident pirate, the good old James R in the house. We got Anthony Estrada, not Ponch's brother, not his cousin, not Eric's anybody. It's good old, the one and only Anthony Estrada. Good to see you, Anthony. How are you, sir? I know we got Microwave Oven in here. I love getting to that name, but I saw him last.
Wait, come again? Who?
Microwave Oven.
Microwave oven.
It's my mother. Get out, Mom.
Microwave Oven. Left on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Let's see who else we got. We got the wonderful Janine Tight Dress Timmons in the house. Good to see you, Janine.
Dress.
Yes, don't you
Much
remember?
love,
Were you
Janine.
here that night? You were here that night. And then I think it was boiling pasta or something.
Yeah.
She has a second nickname too. I'm trying to remember them all now at this point. I'm getting old. I'm 56. I'm losing my memory. Who else we got in here? I'm scrolling. Look, there's me a lot. There's Michael Redford. Great to see you, Michael Redford. How are you, brother? Great to see you. Welcome to the show. Who else? I don't see Steve Tottenham. There he is. Steve Tottenham's in the house. Good to see you, Steve Tottenham. How are you, brother? Good to see you. Who else we got in here? Hold on. There's a lot of the same names. There he is. There's Microwave Oven right there, checking in at 7:13 p.m. He's in the house. Microwave Oven. I feel like I should just walk around chanting that night. Microwave. Microwave. Exactly. It's way better than Rudy. Hold on. Who else we got in here?
Hey.
You're missing Peggy.
I know,
Janine's reminding you.
Peggy at E6 Horse. She's here. I gotta get to the name. I know I saw Peggy. I saw somebody go, "Hi, Peggy," in all caps. So I know Peggy. I know Peggy was here. And I think that's about it. Oh, no, we got Don, the Scirocco Iacco in the house. Yes, Don. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Is James here?
Which James?
James R.
James.
I did. I said James R. The Resident Pirate.
Okay.
At the very, very top there.
And Australian nobility is well represented.
And that's it.
Here.
You wonderful people. I just want to make sure you're always acknowledged. Okay, now on to the
Thank
question.
you, Tim.
All right.
Thank you. Beautiful.
So my question, because Dianne, you brought up the idea about policing and it being basically interacting with people and coming face. And I know that police get involved in some pretty harrowing experiences, from time to time, probably far more often than anybody would like them to be. But I'm talking about the nonviolent interactions and how a police officer wrestles with the idea that you've got somebody here in front of them that is quote unquote breaking the law or conducting themselves unlawfully. And then you have to look at the situation and the scenario when you're talking about, say, something like vaping, which in some places it is illegal now, right? So,
Right.
I mean, I think most police officers would have some inkling of what is happening in front of them, and I don't see them wanting to feel the need to be aggressive in those situations. But I guess my question, moreover, is how does a police officer wrestle with that ethical sort of approach of like dealing with somebody they know is not really doing anything to hurt anybody else. It's something that they're doing, that may be illegal. And then where the line is drawn and when law takes over.
Yeah, that a lot of times, a lot of that is guided by policy and law, right? But I think to your point, what you're asking is about discretion. And, I had the fortunate ability to be in policing at a time where we had a lot of discretion, right? But the problem with discretion is sometimes people misuse discretion and something really bad happens and it becomes a detriment where, I think about domestic violence, right?
Yeah.
There was a point in time in our society where domestic violence was an accepted part of our backgrounds. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it was. And, law enforcement would go out to calls. There was no mandatory arrests. And, in 1983, I remember because I was 21 when I got hired as a police officer. What do 21-year-olds know about relationships, right? And so you get stuck on graveyard and they teach you how to deal with a domestic violence situation. It's like you separate the parties, you listen, you try to de-escalate, see if there's been any crime, but they're asking us to solve a problem. And I just remember one of the first domestic violence calls I went to, and it's a couple now that probably would be about my age because I just turned 63 and they've been married forever and they're yelling and screaming at each other at the top of their lungs. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, what do I know about marriage, right? How do I solve this problem? And so we didn't arrest enough people when we should have. And so that's how mandatory laws come in. Same thing around the issue of DUI is I'm not trying to minimize I used to call it the crime du jour is, something really bad would happen. And then policymakers or legislators would think creating a law is going to solve that problem instead of thinking kind of outside the box. So one of the things that LEAP works on currently is we do technical assistance in the implementing of alternative responses to policing. So we have a community responder model program that we go in and we look at law enforcement municipalities' calls for service and go, do cops really need to be going to barking dog calls, right?
Yeah.
Right? Do cops really need to be going out to tell kids to be quiet and not play in the street? Is there other models that could reduce the harmful interventions of policing? Because you have to remember, for us is, we try to get people, like a party call, right? Knock on the door. Hey, your neighbors are complaining. Can you, turn it down, right? Most people are really good about saying, oh, we didn't know. Most people would also be really good if their neighbor knocked on the door, hopefully, and said, hey, if you have those relationships. But when something goes south, and this is, part of the menthol ban issue, is we've seen it time and time again. Ocean City, Maryland, that's had 2 very bad incidents with vaping on their boardwalk, where they have beat kids or they beat an adult consumer because they were vaping on the boardwalk and the compliance didn't occur as quick as an officer wanted it to happen, right? And so, I have this long-standing line that I use with legislators and staffers is like, when you're creating laws, you have to think about unintended consequence of those laws. And whether it's a parking ordinance, right? Or, we used to, when recycling happened, is they were sending us out to go chase people who were homeless, who were taking out recycling cans, right? It's like, is that a cop's job? Should we be doing this? And there's never any thought process of what happens when someone doesn't comply. So a law, no matter how benign it may appear, a municipal code ordinance, a big state law, or a federal law, when someone enforces it and our government, grants law enforcement the power to use state-sanctioned violence up to and including killing someone, you have to be really thoughtful of the laws that we propose, how they're enforced, and who should be enforcing them, right? Or
Yeah.
is there other ways to get people to comply? Is public education a better avenue for reducing smoking than a law that bans it, right? And
Yeah.
I would say that that it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
But you know, whether you know, we need to save law enforcement resources when people are harming people. And so for me, it was always my discretion stopped when someone was harming someone.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
because that's kind of
Well
the.
put.
Sorry, didn't just wanted to kind of cap it out. That was because that's kind of what I was going for, was like these incidents that we see appear more and more often now with these quote unquote teenagers that are vaping when I mean, they know that they aren't supposed to have the thing, and I
Right.
you know, I imagine it's got to be a tough thing to wrestle with when you got sort of, you're just asking someone, hey bro, I'm probably not going to throw you in the clink. I'm not going to even take your vape away. I'm going to let you walk away because I know or already know what it is. You're not, you know, but there's too many people want to throw their nose up to authority, like, you know, screw you, I'm going to kind of do what I want to do, kind of thing. And I fear that you know, over a tobacco harm reduction product, there's going to be consequential harms to or unintended consequences to young individuals who may be a little you know, resistant or agnostic to authority and stuff like that. And I hope that doesn't result in something more dramatic, you know, when we're talking about a vape and a little bit of non-compliancy and then something horrific happens. Anyway, Michelle, I think you were going to ask a question. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. No, what she was saying, Dianne, I agree with you completely. It reminds me of New Orleans and New Orleans policemen. And you know, for years they've had Mardi Gras, and my father
Right.
was in New Orleans Police Department, you know, so he was a sergeant and he was down there every night, you know, in the quarter, and he saw a lot. And you know, they just had to kind of, hey, if it's not hurting anybody, you know, you let it go. You save your sources, your resources, your everything till you need them, and then you concentrate everything, you know. And if you're spread too thin, it doesn't work. None of it works, you know. Too many
Right.
holes, too many everything. But if you concentrate on just the bad and what really needs it, you know, and that's all. Is it just, when you were talking, it was so parallel to New Orleans thought in policing Mardi Gras in general, you know.
I love, you know, New Orleans has its issues in policing in
Oh, yeah.
particular. I mean, they've had history of corruption and some other
For
stuff,
years.
but you know, to your point, there's plenty of great New Orleans police officers, right? It is,
Right.
you know, and I think about policing as a profession is, you know, things that cause corruption is a lack of professionalism. It's a lack of standards. The drug war caused huge issues in New Orleans, corruption. Like back in the day when I was working, is I had some friends who were part of the FBI who worked and did undercover stings. If you remember, and I'm sure your dad remembers,
Oh, yeah,
right?
I've probably met a few.
Yeah, right. And so, you know, you start thinking about what the role and the purpose of policing should be. And I think we gauge policing around the wrong metrics, right?
Right.
And this is an internal issue for policing, is we think the people that should be promoted are those hard charging police officers that the old adage was hook and book, you know, the more felony arrests, the more tickets you wrote.
Stats.
The stats. And those metrics were really completely wrong. And to Volmer and to Sir Robert Peel, because I'm going to bring that, you know, that back in.
You mean the Templar Knight?
The Templar Knight, right? Yeah. So
I have that.
So Sir Robert Peel felt that law enforcement, policing in particular, should be assessed on the absence of crime, right?
Yeah.
And it's not how many people you arrest, is how you co-share safety in a community. And Vollmer was right. Peel was right. You know, the police are the community is the police. But one of the things that we're working on in our alternative responses to policing is also public education, because the criminal justice system for way too many years, the modern history, has been filled with hubris that we are the only experts that know what public safety means. So, you know, the emphasis on community policing in the past has all been very superficial. Now, I'm not discounting that programs like Coffee with a Cop aren't good engagement, but it's more feel good and it looks good. But is it actually uplifting the people we serve to be equal stakeholders in prioritizing what public safety and community health looks like, right?
Yeah.
So we think that, and we believe in, and we're seeing this happen in, you know, 21st century policing and alternative responses to policing, whether they're co-responder models, community responder models, are leading the way to show that our law enforcement resources should be used strategically and saved to do the things we're supposed to do, like solve homicides and rapes, right? Let's look at our national crime clearance rates. When I started, we were solving, I think, you know, 8 out of 10 murders, 6 out of 10 rapes. I think we're lucky if we're solving 50% of our homicides right now, and maybe 3 out of 10 rapes. We're solving maybe 3 out of 10 street robberies. You know, so there's other ways to look at policing, but we can't be siloed away from the infrastructure that's more efficacious in preventing crime. Things like, not wanting to talk politics, but I'm going to throw this out there because I say this all the time. We don't have universal health care. We don't have appropriate behavioral health care. We should be using harm reduction, and especially in the tobacco harm reduction field, that you go to your doctor and we should be like the UK. Here's a vape. You want to quit smoking? Here's an alternative, right? You know, we should be handing out fentanyl test strips to everybody right now because our entire drug supply is poisoned. You know, there are so many things we could be doing that we don't. And then the problem is cops are the only people, and fire department are the only people that answer the call 24 hours a day. You know, I hear social workers complain about law enforcement all the time, and I'm like, hey, we need 24-hour social workers that respond to mental health calls, to homeless issues, to all sorts of things. And so, you know, let's work on finding solutions, not isolate law enforcement from other systems that maybe we can bring people into these other systems without coercive, you know, criminal justice interventions, and say, here's people who are going to help you navigate health, mental health, behavioral health, you know, issues of addiction, homelessness, poverty, all those socioeconomic issues. That why are cops trying to solve socioeconomic issues? We can't. We got one tool that includes potentially killing people.
Yeah. And I would say 90% success rate versus today's, you said 9 out of 10 rapes, homicides, you were solving those cases versus today where we have 50% roughly. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think we were solving like 8 out of 10 homicides back in the early 1980s, and like rapes, I think like, you know, 6 out of 10. I'd have to go back, but I just recall those stats. But right now the crime clearance rates are and property crime.
And would you say that is essentially due to a massive misallocation of resources?
I think it's complex, but I do believe some of it is a misallocation of resources, and part of it is the issue with the drug war, right? Oh, yeah. So, you know, if you start looking at federal funding that makes its way down into state and then local municipalities, right? We all apply for all these grants, and grants from the federal government, and especially around, drug task forces and
It's free money.
It's free money. And so, a lot of emphasis for a lot of agencies has been to take free money, but it comes with the caveat that as part of the outcome measurements is not absence of crime or community satisfaction, or is the addiction rate down, right? Is there less drugs in the community? It's about how many people you churn into the system. Again, it's the wrong metrics and the wrong outcomes.
Yeah. Do you think too that the lower success rate may be due to just unexperienced people being promoted into specific to detectives and investigators? I know now that it takes a lot to be a cop. I have a friend of mine, and his son is going through a lot to be a cop, and these cops now, in a good way, have options now when it comes to where they want to choose to work. And, we have a problem here in Modesto. Our pay scale for a police officer in Modesto is a lot lower than, say, San Jose, San Francisco, Santa Clara. So we're losing a lot of good law enforcement individuals to major cities, Sacramento, Santa Clara. So to me, I feel like, are we getting, I hate saying it, a good cop? Are we getting a decent cop? Or what kind of cop are we getting, when it comes to what we're getting here in Modesto? And it just kind of makes me sad, because these kids are actually having to go to college and get degrees now. You're not just walking into the academy and getting a job as a police officer. That doesn't work anymore. You have to have a degree in some sort of field in law enforcement to get yourself into the police work. So I just wondering, and then you were talking about stats. So, the guy that's he's arresting, 10, 15 people every week. He may not be very good at his job, at what he's doing, but he's the guy that's going to get that promotion from being on the street on the beat to becoming a detective, which is probably the highest, right? I mean, most cops want to become detectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the privilege of working investigations for a fairly significant chunk of my career, and I will tell you, for the most part, most of the people who are going into investigations are really kind of the best and the brightest, especially like in the larger agencies when you're assigned to divisions like robbery, homicide, or even sex crimes. Right? It is part of the problem also, I think, it is not just the pay parity issue, but is one of the things in smaller agencies is you have a lot of rotation through special assignments, because you don't want, and we did too, but we also understood that it was 3 to 5 years, right? That you needed to stay in investigations before you were good at it. Right. So I think that there's a lot of complexities to this issue, but I also think some of it is that we have concentrated our resources on the wrong thing. We have drug task forces. We don't have violent crime task forces, because drug task forces are, in addition to churning people through the system, we also have that really nasty part of the drug war, which is civil asset forfeiture reform, which completely undermines American civil liberties, where we can take people's money without a conviction. And it makes it very difficult for people to get their money back. For years, I've worked on civil asset forfeiture reform, and one of the folks that I worked with out of Institution for Justice was literally the person who started the civil asset forfeiture reform for the federal government. And he became so appalled at what it turned into, because it was not supposed to go after Americans, who weren't making a lot of money. It was supposed to go after drug kingpins. Right. And we never get that's the fallacy of the drug war, is that everything that we do leads us to this kingpin. Sometimes, maybe, mostly no.
Yeah.
We're just turning people that are normal Americans, like my brother, like probably plenty of people that we all know, family members, who use drugs or were substance users and sellers of drugs. It is like, I think our organization is so opposed to drug-induced homicide laws, because what we know from our experience is that today, my child, let's say I have a 19-year-old kid who is buying pills on Snapchat, and he's getting pills for all his buddies, and this child doesn't know that those fentanyl pills, those pills are not really oxycodone, they're fentanyl. And then someone dies because everyone pitched in money to go buy the product, right? Yeah. My child or your child is now getting charged for murder, drug-induced homicide, whether or not they intended to potentially kill their friend. I mean, what we know is, there's this fallacy also, is that drug dealers want to murder their consumers and clients.
That's one of the ones I can never get my head around. Yes, drug dealers are dying to give away, they're really high-end opioids, in your, they want to put it in your kids' Halloween candy because that's where the margins are. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So all the prohibitionist arguments can also be applied to the work that you guys are doing in vaping and safe access, right? It is, I think that the more consumers talk about safe access is really a great buzzword. We've used safe access relative to the issues of medical cannabis. We're using safe supply, safe access to the issue of psychedelics, because that's the next field that is going to be kicking this door down. And I think for me is where I get so appalled at is how the tobacco consumer, right, has been so vilified that they're not supposed to have safe access to something that can help them quit a dangerous substance. We have got to meet people where they're at. That is the basis of harm reduction. And quite simply. And so, we do a ton of work with R Street, and I love R Street. And, they have a harm reduction program that is really working to provide safe access to tobacco harm reduction.
I wanted to give you a quick, because I had to look it up because of Modesto, but Modesto Police Department, 10 killings by police, the highest number rate in the U.S. at 52%. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
10 people killed by police officers. Yeah. 78,432, 69% of all arrests were for low-level nonviolent offenses from 2013 to 2001. Is that something why cops don't want to come and be cops in Modesto?
No, it's, so the 10 shootings, or is it 10 murders in Modesto?
Yeah,
or
10 killings by police officers.
Yeah, 10 10 officer involved shootings. Boy, is that in 1 year?
Yeah, 1 year.
Population of Modesto is
270,000, maybe. Not, it's nowhere. It's
high.
Probably closer to 300,000, but it's right in there. 280, 285. Yeah,
that's really high rate of officer involved shootings. It's hard to make a comment without knowing, because here's the other thing. There are legitimate uses of force, right? I mean, I've been involved in a shooting before, one time, and but I've also had, like, both working narcotics and working kind of a street team, is I've had guns pointed at me where I didn't shoot, and I would have
Yeah.
been perfectly justified in shooting and
Yeah,
killing
yeah.
someone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, some of it is, training, it's hard to make a judgment call
Yeah.
on those
Yeah. Yeah.
10 officer involved shootings.
Yeah. It's tough.
know.
It's
Yeah, were they separate incidents? Did
Yeah,
some
we
of
have
them occur all at once?
216,000 residents in Modesto,
Yeah.
216,000 residents, and a budget of 64 million.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
going
I
to
was
say.
going to say
Yeah.
64 grand will get you right.
yeah. 184 officers per 8.5.
I live in
8.5
Birmingham,
per
Alabama, and even I'm
Yeah.
sort of over here slack-jawed in disbelief. That's
Right?
that's
That's
a
a
pretty
lot.
high number. Yeah, and
That's
I think
a
it's going back to what you were talking about earlier. Recruiting talent in law enforcement, I think it has everything to do with what you mentioned. Conflict resolution, being someone who worked, with people, having to deal with people, having to come up with innovative solutions to problems that don't necessarily need to escalate into violent situations. People with maybe a little sin in their past. For example,
Right.
I think the DUI, let's just say over the last 25 or so years, I would say that DUIs would be an example of, I guess, policing policies that have worked.
Right.
I myself, when I graduated college, I ended up moving to Atlanta. And one of the very first things that happened to me is this was the year where the legal limit changed from 0.1 to 0.08.
8,
0.08,
correct.
yeah.
0.08. So we
Yeah.
were now in that first year of 0.08. I'm driving home from a bar and I get pulled over. I blow a 0.091. And of course, being a kid and just a little prick, I go nuts and I'm very animated, and I'm telling the DUI patrol officer, well, why don't you go to some really, really crime-ridden area of town and break up a rape or a murder, and
Right.
you can go ahead and call yourself a professional. Anyhow, the judge, all of that happened to get he got all of that on video, including me deciding to relieve myself behind a nearby dumpster because I told him, I
Oh,
imagine it's a
no.
long way to the prison, right? Would you mind if I took care of this beforehand? You crime fighting superhero, you. Yeah, I was pretty, yeah.
Intoxicated. Right.
No, I wasn't intoxicated.
No,
I
he was just
intoxicated with-
Phillip.
Right.
He was
No, I
just being Phillip.
intoxicated with self-righteous, naive youth. I mean, just
Yeah.
thinking back on
I
it
get
now. But here's what happened. I ended up getting the book thrown at me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
of course, at the time, I thought to myself, I'm a victim. That's one of the most important things that ever happened to me that I absolutely deserved. And the judge explained it to me before he literally gave me like a year of having to do community service, probation, all kinds of stuff, a massive fine, and took away my driver's license in a state that did not at the time have a worker permit
Right.
available.
Right.
Like every day that I drove from my place to Phipps, where I was working at the time, I was breaking the law. There was no worker permit. Anyway,
Right.
the judge said, listen, I understand that you think that you did nothing wrong here. Here's what you don't know much of anything. We put these laws in place because what you're doing is you're not only gambling with your life, you're gambling with a lot of lives here. And you
Yes.
just don't
Right.
seem to have a clue as to what this is about. So I'm going to make sure that you don't grow any older until you comprehend the gravity of what can take place when someone gets behind the wheel,
Right.
Yep.
almost intoxicated or otherwise. And I've never in my entire life received such a necessary lesson.
Right. Yeah,
Never
and-
again.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it took us as a society a really long time to understand that, and because here's the other interesting, like this was the reduction in the blood alcohol was really transformed by the federal government. So Department of Transportation basically told the states that if you don't change your blood alcohol levels, you're not going to get federal grants for your infrastructure.
Yeah.
And you know, it was the coercive, like sometimes government works in a way that it should, because I think all of us now can recognize, and you know, Phillip is I grew up in an era where, you know, knock on wood, thank God I never got arrested for driving under the influence. You know, I remember having that epiphany in a moment in time where I was young and came home because we had fake IDs, and I got up and couldn't remember where I parked my car. And you walk out to your car and you, like, it scared the bejesus out of me, because it's like, oh my God, let's hope there's no dents, there's no blood, there's like, I just, and I got that lesson without having to be arrested. And I worked a DUI team, and actually, you know, DUI team was fun and gross and just hilarious, because
Good Lord.
you had the Phillips of the world.
You got some great stories, man.
See, I wasn't drunk, but here's the thing: I would, if I had been given a pass, at that point, it would have been a matter of, you know, I would have, you know, I would have been well above the limit sooner or later. And let's just say I needed some humility.
Someone. And you could have, and you know, I think back to many of the fatal traffic accident scenes that I've been out to, and having to work that were DUI related, and having to do death notifications to parents whose kids were killed in drunk driving accidents. Right. Either because they were driving or somebody hit them. It is, you know, it's that for me is, in today's day and age, in particular with Uber and with Lyft.
You have a lot of options.
I would say these rideshare companies.
Well, they call it
for that very purpose.
Yeah, they call it now buzz driving. So you can't get away with what you got away with back then today, because it would have slapped you with the wet and reckless is what they like to go at. So for me, it's the same thing, Phillip. I got pulled over. I blew over, and then he made me do it again, and then he made me do it again. He made me do it 3 times, which was his fault. And I was like, dude, I'm blowing over. I was like, I'm 2 houses away from where I'm going, and I'm parked already. And I ended up with a wet and reckless. But here's the problem that I don't like about this law. And the law is, as far as truck drivers are concerned, with Class A licenses,
that's right,
your number is even lower.
Yep.
And in a personal vehicle, we're treated a lot different. If I get a ticket in my car and it's a 1 point for you, it's 2 points for me, because I'm a professional driver. I don't like that. If I'm on my personal vehicle, I should be treated just like a regular driver on the road. But because I have that Class A license, I am treated differently. So my blood alcohol, I think it's 7, right?
No, it may even be lower. It could be
0.05.
It could be 0.05. Depending, like people don't know, if you live in Utah or you visit Utah, Utah blood alcohol level is like, you know, Europe. And I wish Janine was here, because I think Canada's the same way, a 0.05, right?
Wow.
Now, depending on who you are, like for me, a 0.05 is 1 drink.
Oh, yeah.
Like I do, at the most, if I'm out with friends, I will have a drink, a club soda. I may have a dessert drink, and then I'll have a cup of coffee. I'm very cognizant of
basically a drink an hour at most. If I am driving, even then, you know, I usually won't drive if I'm drinking, period.
Yeah.
One drink, one water. One drink,
it's
one
just
water
not
every
worth
hour.
it. But what I wanted to say is the incentives were there. Having had this first DUI, obviously, you know, I was a kid. I went nuts, and I got there were jobs that I wasn't even able to think about getting until I could get this off of my record. And it took
it's tough.
I mean, it was on my record for 7 years. No, I actually was able to do I think I had to do both anger management and
I could see that. I can see that.
Let's just say, yeah, the video was a little animated.
That needs to be on YouTube, Philip. It needs to be on YouTube. I need to see this video. I'm sure it's in the archives.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
really, I mean, there's not a close up of me, using.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there for you, John. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you my funny experience.
But I wanted to say the following. It's
Yeah, go ahead.
important that people understand that through that process, not only did I learn an important lesson about it wasn't about necessarily how, my blood alcohol content. It was about my concept of what is and what is not ultimately harmful and a serious, not only, at risk behavior where I'm essentially a weapon out on the road. And I just, I just belittled it and diminished it so much to where I think I absolutely needed that. And what I'm,
do you blame your professors? Do you blame your professors for your attitude? Because you said you just got out of college. So I'm just wondering if you blamed it.
I blame myself, and I can, I blame myself for what happened, and I give myself all the credit from the learning that I have put into place.
Well, this happened to me a couple months ago, and I want to get your thoughts on this. And I was coming up to a DUI checkpoint. I'm on my way to work. I work in the middle of the night, and she lets about 7 cars go past, and then she pulls me over. So my first thought is, why the blue Honda with the white guy sitting in there with a work shirt on, and why me? So when I rolled my window down, that was the first thing. I wasn't being rude. I wasn't trying not to be rude. I told her, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here. I just want to understand why you let 7 cars go through, and why did you pick the blue Honda with me in it?
Random.
And she just looked at me, and she didn't want to say anything at first. She goes, where you heading? I go, it doesn't matter where I'm heading. I asked you a simple question. Why did you pull the blue Honda over with one guy in it? And she just couldn't answer. She goes, you know what, sir? You have yourself a nice day, and just waved me through. But was I coming?
They would have put me in shackles.
No,
was
you
I
know
coming
what? It's so DUI checkpoints. Boy, there's a lot of research that talks about their ineffectiveness. Let's just be very clear. They really don't.
There's not a science to it.
It's random, right?
Yeah.
Is like you wave people through, and then you just randomly stop someone and engage in an alleged consensual conversation. If you smell alcohol, then but there's research, and it's been years since I've looked at it, that shows it's not very effective. But because of federal grant money, because of Office of Traffic and Safety in California that gets this grant. Law enforcement basically takes these grants. They have to say what they're going to do with them, and everyone goes to random checkpoints rather than funding maybe overtime for driving under the influence teams. So my agency had a DUI team, and I worked it for a year. Like literally what would happen is cops would, pull a traffic stop, and all they would have to do is write what their probable cause for pulling the person over, weaving lanes, smell of alcohol when they approach them. Then they'd call us, and we were literally doing all the field sobriety tests, taking them in the station, processing them. I, like in a scope of a year, arrested a couple hundred people for driving under the influence. It was miserable. Right. And I'm not here to diminish.
You save
women.
lives. You save lives.
But I'm not here to diminish women. I had more fights in my almost 22-year career in policing with women than I've ever had with men, and drunk women. Right?
It's so
like
No good.
oh my, it's like mean drunks. Like
drunk,
they weren't nice drunks. They weren't happy drunks like I tend to be, unless I do tequila shooters, which is why I don't do tequila anymore. Yeah, that's that Mexican in me coming out, right?
You got to keep it 100% blue agave.
Right? It is, man, alcohol, like with cannabis, never happened, right? Cannabis never, like when cops talk about cannabis, I just jokingly always chat and say, come on, dude, seriously. When's the last time you went to someone's house where dad's smoking a joint in the house
Yeah.
Right? Has he beat his wife or his baby mama? Has he molested the kids? Has he pillaged the neighborhood? No, he just wants to watch his football game
Yeah, yeah, he might
play
burn the
video game.
pizza, you know,
It's
but that's about it.
You know,
Burn
so
the pizza.
Well, you
but
leave the
it's
toast in a bit
true.
long. I don't know. Things happen. The Cool Ranch Doritos are all gone.
Yeah,
Right?
really.
Shit happens.
And
Yeah.
so,
Oh
but-
my God, he's using blue cheese as a dipping sauce. No.
Gross.
yeah, gross, which is it's gross.
But
I hate blue cheese.
Diane, do you think that women in your time spent with the DUI task force, do you think that women were likely to go all crazy Malibu rum on you because you were in fact a woman?
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you an absolutely hilarious story. I'm working graveyard and I'm sitting in a Taco Bell parking lot on Pacific Coast Highway in Redondo Beach, right? And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And here comes a Corvette flying, probably going 75, 80, 90 miles an hour. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a pursuit, right? So I hit my lights and sirens, take off. It's graveyard, right? So you got the spotlight that's going into their mirrors so they can't really see who's approaching. It's a convertible, really nice Corvette. And I walk up and there's this drop dead gorgeous woman and she's got a jumpsuit on and she has the jumpsuit completely unzippered down to her navel and her are pretty much out there, right? And I walk up and I basically say, excuse me, ma'am, can I see your license and registration? Do you know why I stopped you? You were going a tad bit fast. I clocked you at 90 miles an hour in a, 45 mile an hour zone.
Mm.
And she was like, she looked up, her eyes got about this big. It was an absolute riot.
Yeah.
She handed me her registration, her insurance, her driver's license. I walked back to my car. I gave her a break and I only rode her for 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. And when I walked back up with the ticket, she was completely zippered all the way up.
Yeah, zipped up. She's like, yep.
That is the greatest story I have ever heard.
Happened.
I forgot to mention.
Didn't do that though. Men didn't do that to me though. I'll
Hey,
admit.
my ex-wife,
They left their jumpsuits wide open, huh?
yeah.
Those
my
bastards.
ex-wife never got a ticket and she was pulled over so much. It was ridiculous. And she's always like, I didn't get a ticket. She goes, I go, how? She just smiles. She goes, I smile and I'm, I already have my, she's got a routine. She had a routine. As soon as she got pulled over, she had her driver's license and her insurance card in her hand. And she just smiled because she knew she was wrong. And just doing that little thing of showing some kindness back to them made them go, well, you know what? You should slow down a little bit. You were going 50 in a 35. And I'm like, I get pulled over. I'm the idiot. I'm the guy that's getting ready. My first date with her, I'm in my car. It's fast. I'm sitting at the light. And this dude starts revving it up because this is Modesto in the 80s. Everybody had a hot car. And I'm sitting there revving my engine. He's revving his engine. We both take off. And guess who's right behind me? Modesto PD. And he spilled his coffee all over himself. He was pissed. When he pulled us over, he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You don't see me sitting right behind you guys? And I'm just sitting there going, damn it, man, I got no luck. And you just sitting there goes, I should send you my dry cleaning. I got coffee all over my shirt.
This is like Cannonball Run stuff.
Oh man.
But remember Redondo Beach is where Cannonball ended.
Yeah.
No, Cannonball was a real thing in Portofino because growing up in high school, absolutely.
I mean, that jumpsuit, put it in a Corvette or Ferrari, whatever. Let's just say that sometimes, in the movies, it doesn't get zipped up and things end happily ever after, no matter what. But what I'm thinking is this, having I was taught certain things. My college roommate, his brother was at USC at the time, and driving through some of those neighborhoods and having this extreme interest in looking at those cars bouncing up and down, I was very quickly made aware of the fact that you don't stare. Because his brother ran 4 traffic lights trying to get away from that car that I was apparently staring at, and they stared back. But the point is, I think I've never actually gotten any trouble that was, well, I've never gotten any major trouble, and I didn't, in the trouble I've gotten into, I deserved to be punished.
Yeah. Exhibition of speed, $325.
Oh,
Yeah.
Exhibition of
Exhibitionist speed. They don't have that in Alabama. A lot of things we don't have. In
Yeah,
Alabama.
and that's doing a burnout. If you do a
Yeah.
burnout, that's what they give you. Yeah. And I did one hell of a burnout. I mean, I smoked him out. That's why he was still angry at us. He's like, "What the hell? Seriously?"
This is the guy who suggested you pay for his dry cleaning.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, he spilled his, he had no idea what was going on. We just, the light turned green and we just took off, and I burned my tires from the light to the middle of the street, and there's just smoke everywhere. Now think of it, it's 2 cars doing that. So he's thrown off. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" Yeah, I mean, it's an exhibition of speed, $325.
So
dude.
you were being a bad boy. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know he was back there. If I would have saw him back there, there's no way I'm racing this guy. But yeah, that's
Worst answer ever. If you get pulled over.
well, I want to bring something up that, yeah,
I'm
I want to
going to
bring
say this
something.
real quick is
Yeah,
we only catch, like that was always our adage. We only catch the people that deserve to get caught because
Yeah,
they weren't
yeah.
really smart about it, right?
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want to
exactly.
say we only catch the stupid people, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not stupid.
Right.
You know,
No,
you
I
just
was
weren't-
stupid.
You just weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Well,
You know-
that brings up, we talked a little bit about something, and that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and some of the things that happen on the boardwalks and with police officers, and really, like, I grew up in a generation where, and I think Tim and Michelle the same, as we had a little more respect for the police officer when we did get pulled over. And I think sometimes in today's world, that
Big
situation on the boardwalk could have been handled a lot differently on both ends. And I think if the police officer approaches those kids in a manner where he's not belittling them and making them feel like fools, and again, it goes to those kids as well, respecting the authority, understanding that he's trying to do a job. And that's how I was taught. My dad's like, "Hey,
Right.
he's trying to do a job and he's putting his life in danger every day." So, I knew some basic laws of things that they weren't allowed to ask when you did get pulled over. And one of them is, my dad says, it doesn't matter where you're going. They should not be
Right.
asking you where you're heading or where you're coming from. So my response would always be in a nice manner. It doesn't matter where I'm going. I need to know why you pulled me over.
Right.
And do you think I don't know how that is taught, if that's something you as a police officer learns as a kid on how to respect others, but is that something do you go through in the academy where you're taught to engage the public in a certain manner and to show the public figure or person a little bit of respect when you are pulling them over and not having this ego and attitude? Is that
Well,
something
that's-
taught?
Yeah, that's what we hope, right?
That's what we hope.
It's yes, but it's so interesting. I always, so much of the work that LEAP engages in is we really try to get people to understand evidence-based policies, right? And why disparities occur. I think about pretextual stops, right? That's one of the issues that we've worked on. Really, non-safety stops is the correct terminology in California and other places. And there was out of University of Michigan, there was a replicated body-worn camera research. And what they did, body-worn cameras have been fascinating, and the evolution of body-worn cameras, and now how we're going to be able to use AI to really look at training issues and running audits on our officers doing the jobs that the way they should. And so a couple of years ago, this research came out where they looked at tons of body-worn camera footage, and they found it wasn't, the officers, whether they were male or female, didn't matter what race they were, treated Black male drivers differently than they treated white people.
Right.
Right.
And it was in you know, the lack of professionalism. It's like, you know, in the way that they approach them, in the way that they talk with them, tone and tenor, you know, very disrespectfully. And so, you know, we have to get back to training cops. And so it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
It is, you know, you see these studies, you see the research on disparate outcomes in the criminal justice system, and we have to account and acknowledge that bias plays a significant issue. And for some people, that bias, you know, can be racist in nature.
Can't be
Diversity.
And
Just
so,
really quick, was this regional or national? Just out of curiosity.
I'd have to go back and take a look at it. I think it was national.
The
but,
national,
I mean,
my buddy talked about that research, and he kind of threw it back into my face. Is it's tough for a police officer when he sees the statistics of what happens when a Black person or a Hispanic person gets pulled over. There's more tendency to be more violence in there. There more tendency to be a little bit more hate for the police officer. So he's saying that sometimes that sits in the back of the police officer's mind is, hey, I just pulled over this person, and there's a good chance that this could turn in ugly quickly,
Right.
because, you know, and I call bullshit on it. I
Well,
did call bullshit.
That is, because
Yeah.
I can send you a policy brief that just came out with partners that we do work with, the Center for Policing Equity, and it was on the use of force associated with traffic stops and how much higher it is if someone is a person of color versus
Right.
and but again, it's, you know, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? We've also seen some really great research that talks about restorative justice principles where, you know, cops are taught a particular script that basically is, you know, and what they did is they looked at intersections that were not safe, fatal traffic accidents, pedestrians being hit.
Yeah.
And what they ended up doing is doing a script, sending traffic officers out in a controlled environment. You know, so there was an actual research project, and it showed that the officers who had the script that basically talked about the reason we're out here and explained to the citizen who they were stopping in a very respectful, professional fashion. I don't know if you're aware, the high rate of traffic accidents here, there's been people killed. These are the things that are contributing to that. And so we are out here doing traffic enforcement in order to save people's lives.
Right.
Much more compliance.
Yes.
Right. And so, you know, there's a new book out right now called The Danger Imperative, which I have not read all of it. Right. And I'm only a couple chapters into it right now. And again, it's a brilliant research by a criminal justice professor that embedded himself with 3 different agencies that were large, medium, a little bit smaller, right, in different areas of the country for multiple years, doing tons and tons of traffic stops, looked at training, talked about everything. And so his book is called The Danger Imperative, and how that is ingrained into law enforcement from the minute you get hired in the academy training. And it emphasizes the safety of the police officer above everyone else.
Above everyone else, yeah.
And that's wrong, right? It's
to protect and serve.
Thank you. I mean, and so, you know, so what you have is you have a neutral policy, because what the training does and what the formal training after the academy and informal training through your peers and others is that everybody can potentially kill you. And if you don't have people that understand context, you know, is an 83-year-old woman going to kill you? I don't know if you guys saw the really horrific video of the shooting that just happened, I think in Springfield, Illinois, with the deputy who killed the mentally ill lady. He fucking executed her.
Despite my attempts to avoid it, yes, I saw.
No, yeah, and so I make myself watch every video that comes
Yeah.
out like that, because those are important and valuable lessons. One of the things that's coming out on that, back to, you know, the point of training and academies and vetting people, I you know, this deputy had been with 4 or 5 different agencies, maybe more. He'd been arrested for DUI twice. There was also, like, what was he doing as a police officer? You know, why are
Right.
we not vetting our folks better? Right. So, you know, so that's the classic danger imperative. It's like, you know, we should be really emphasizing and teaching people more tactical retreats.
Yeah.
You know, why are we putting ourselves into positions that we think we need to use force? But
Yeah.
this is a mentally ill lady. If they had an alternative response
Yeah.
program and sent someone mentally, you know, to handle a mentally ill person who understood it. I mean, he's giving her directions to go turn off the stove. She's trying to comply with him, and he escalates the situation.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like with my buddy, you know, when I would talk to him, there's a video, and I don't know what it was called. It was on YouTube, but they just showed police cams from the car, and the approach the officer takes to the vehicle, and that first initial thing that the police officer does is always goes here. He always goes. His hand is on the gun, and I don't know if that's something that's taught, but that kind of does.
Taught.
It throws off that interaction you're going to have with that individual in the car, because now he sees that. I mean, as a person, if I see a cop go for his gun, or not go for it, but make sure it's unbuttoned or whatever to get his hand on it, I'm going to assume my life's in somewhat of danger as just being pulled over. So I just kind of tried to talk to him about that. I said, you know, maybe that approach needs to be a little bit different. And I do understand their lives are in danger as well anytime they pull a vehicle over. But I feel like approaching the vehicle and the first thing you're doing is making sure your gun is ready, I think sends a wrong message to that person that's getting pulled over.
I imagine there's a veteran and a rookie way to do that.
Every one of them, Phil. You watch this video, it's like 30, 40 cops.
It's like you said, police officers with 4-year degrees are, let's just say, preferable. And my thinking of that, it's not necessarily because of their degree and what they learned in college. It's about their experiences with
life
people
experiences,
and the necessity to adapt and
how they were raised,
socially interact. And if you manage to get your 4-year degree, you're going to find yourself in all kinds of. That's why I went so far away to school. That and my extraordinary abilities as a baseball player. But anyway, I wanted to be in a place where I was the only Jew from Alabama in a C. It was the largest school in the country. Yes, the scholarship helped, but I'm saying that I could have gone to a number of places where it would have been just like staying home and having every advantage that I did not actually want or deserve. I had not worked for that. I needed to go somewhere where we had, people who were smarter, richer, better looking, and I wanted to be humbled. And I did get that experience. But one of the things that's important to say is I really found myself in a position where it was, after the first year, I would say, second semester freshman year, I was lonely. I was kind of depressed. Yeah. After that, I put in some effort, because let's just say, when you find out you don't, you actually have to try, it can be a bit shocking.
Show up to class.
But I'm saying, after 4 years of school, meeting people from, Peru, Indonesia, California, exotic places like that, it is a lifetime worth of experiences that will serve you in any future endeavor. And most, let's just say, Dianne, everything you've done from DUI patrol to I think negotiations in certain situations, I think you were a conflict negotiator. I don't know if it had to do with hostage situations or what.
I helped and run our crisis negotiations team, and did a ton of work with the FBI and other agencies in developing national standards and but that's a whole other.
But
That's all.
if
That's
there's
a whole other.
Did
there's
you
one
ever?
thing
did
people
you-
know about you, as soon as they meet you, you are incredibly amenable. You are easy to talk to, and there's a really good reason for that. Life experience, and yes,
Right.
that is so important. Rather than
Mhm.
having, this ridiculous, the academy, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. These are kids, and just because they've completed the training that's necessary to become a police officer doesn't mean they have the life experience and the understanding of human. Let's just say, human
Foibles?
nature,
Human nature.
Human nature.
human
foibles.
nature, foibles, and you have to actually be in a certain number of awkward ass situations in order to understand
your
what
life,
it means.
throughout your life.
You want to resolve the conflict. You do not seek it.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, I didn't grow up as a cop's kid. If someone would have told me I was going to be a cop, I would have died laughing. How was it growing up as a cop's
Oh, it was
kid?
awful. It was awful. It really was. And I'm saying that I'm saying that very heartfully. I mean, it was awful. I was not the best kid, but I was blamed for everything. I mean,
Oh.
everything. But I had a lot of friends, and
Right.
and
Did your dad run
had
checks on all your boyfriends?
Oh, absolutely. And I had policemen that were, I don't know if he was paying them or what, but literally they would follow me around if I left the house. And I mean, we were in a suburb and he was in New Orleans. So, he still found policemen to follow me around,
Yeah.
and I was a good kid. I was the one that was in the private school. My other one, my other sister and my brother was another public school. We all went to 3 different schools. But
That's funny.
Were you guys that bad that he had to separate you 3 from
no, we
schools?
just didn't want to go to school together. My family is extremely dysfunct. I mean, extremely. And it really boils down to the police department as far as that goes.
Right.
My dad wanted the best for us, and I think we all knew that. But believe me, I mean, since age 5, I knew that if I got in trouble with the police department, he told me every day, that if I got in trouble, he was going to make sure that I was booked up for a week. And he was not going to come get me, And I believed him. I mean, I truly believed that that's exactly what he would have done. If he could have kept me in there longer, he would have, but it taught me a lot. And I think today, let's face it, parents unfortunately aren't teaching their kids how to respect their own parents. So how are they going to go and respect a policeman that is trying to do their civic duty to help these people stay alive ultimately, so how are they going to respect that person, But
Kids should all get mandatory DUIs at 22. And have to work.
You know what?
Yeah.
I used to say we should send teenagers away to a teenage concentration camp. That's a nice one, right? It's like a summer camp, but that they come back responsible. They know how to balance a checkbook.
Ooh,
they know,
God, a budget. They know what a budget is.
They know what a budget is.
Yeah,
right?
and they have to spend thousands of dollars and do 1,000 hours of community service.
Right.
And they can't drive anywhere. And after a year, if they complete everything and that anger, hate, whatever.
Right.
But
then it gets off your record. Excuse me.
Coming from a family that had a father, I think maybe everybody ought to be police officers when they grow up.
Just for a couple weeks.
A couple weeks.
Believe me, they would have a different look on life. And my hat's off to every one of you. I mean, I couldn't do it. I know that I am not that kind of person. But
I see my buddy's family. My buddy's family, I see a look on her eyes every time he leaves to go to work, and the kids have gotten to the age that they understand that, at any given moment, dad may not make it home, and that's tough. I mean, that is tough on them. So
do y'all
I have a lot of, for me, like my dad just said, hey, you be respectful to them. They'll be respectful to you. And that's how I've always been. I got pulled over. I always have my stuff out ready to go. I don't want to be fidgeting. Because they don't like that. Cops don't like it when you're fidgeting, and so for me, I've always been I've had my stuff out. Have I had some bad run-ins? Yeah, I've had one where I left Black Oak Casino here and up in the hills. First time there, middle of the night, we left at 2 or 3 in the morning. I started to take off, and I didn't drink anything that whole night. And you get lost up in the hills. And I'm like, I pull over because I was always taught, pull over. I'm a truck driver, get the map out. Well, a highway patrol officer pulls behind me, and I figure, great, this is awesome. I'll figure out how to get home. And I get out, and from the go, he was an asshole to me. And I'm trying to explain to him, look, I'm lost. I just left Black Oak. I've not been drinking. You can smell I have no alcohol. And what is something I do, and I think it's not just me, I have a tendency when I'm talking to someone to put my hands in my pocket. Right. And he kept telling me, get your fucking hands out of your pocket, just like that. And I go, I'm sorry. And I pulled my hands out, and I was like, look, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going. Again, I put my hands in my pocket. Get your fucking hands out of your pocket. And I'm like, hey, man. Now, finally, I got a little mad after the third or fourth time. I go, look, man, are you arresting me? What the hell's going on here? I said, I'm asking you for directions. I am lost. My wife's in the car. You can see, we're trying to figure out, there's a map in my truck, so we're trying to figure out how to get out of here. And he just was the biggest asshole I've ever met in my life. And it was just, but that doesn't change the way I act to the next police officer, because the next police officer, I'm the same way. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I fucked up, yeah, I know. And like Dana said, I'm nice to him. I want to say Dina. It's so hard for me not to say Dina because that's my co-host. But being nice to him, he did the same thing she did. He goes, hey, you know what? I could get you for 80, 85. I'm going to lower it to 45, 50, and you go ahead, go on your way. And to me, that's how I've always been. I treat them with respect. They treat me with respect. But if you don't give me the respect, I know that I have some rights, and I will use some of those rights, but I'm not going to get to the point where the situation gets dangerous. And that's what I think people don't understand, is when that situation ends up becoming very dangerous and then someone gets hurt, then who do you blame? I think cops should have not just the body cam, but I think they should have some device that registers their heart rate and blood pressure. And I think that's data that I think you guys can use when a police officer makes that initial stop. How's what is his heart rate? Is he, which obviously most cops are probably
anything beats eyewitness testimony.
Right.
Let me ask you this: the outcome of your whole, the guy, he was being profane. He was cursing at you. He was
30 minutes, dude. 30 minutes.
What was the outcome of that?
He finally goes, well, okay, to go down this road,
seriously?
take it to the stop sign, turn left, get on
I
the
would
Cedar
have
River.
said there's no need to be rude.
Yeah, I did, Phillip.
Why use profanity? And he would have locked me up forever. This is just my case.
I was mad.
First of all, is a 30-minute roadside traffic stop is unacceptable.
No,
because of case law. And, I have like literally just a couple minutes left because I actually have a work panel that I have to go drive down to. But you mentioned something, John, that I think is so important. And hopefully all of you guys do, is we need to become better informed citizens and understand our rights.
Right.
And I am not a comply or die person when it comes to law enforcement. I think that there are way too many folks out there that blame victims for lawful but awful shootings or awful, uses of force that are not justified, simply because people understood their rights. And cops need to understand that we should be policing based on the Constitution. And we absolutely, unequivocally shouldn't be going into people's pockets and violating people's rights simply because we think we can, or because people, we may think that someone shouldn't be there. But if they haven't done anything wrong, you don't have a basis or right to stop, search, detain people, or keep them by the roadside for 30 minutes. That's completely illegal. There is Supreme Court cases that cite You know, you can only detain someone for the time that it takes you to give them a citation or a warning.
Yeah. Well, too, like my dad, when my dad would talk to us about police officer,
John, excuse me. I have
Yeah.
one question for Dianne. We never got to elaborate on this. You were talking about language when you're talking to representatives, when you're talking on behalf of LEAP. You're talking about the language you use in terms of harm reduction measures that work is something that's very important. I happen to think that tobacco harm reduction, we need to work on our nomenclature.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions? Like you said.
I think the if you take the harm reduction tenets that are out there and you talk about meeting people where they're at, that if the goal is to save someone's life, why are we not meeting adult smoker consumers where they're at and providing them with access to safe and regulated products, right? And the issue for safe and regulated products, that's not a law enforcement responsibility. That's the FDA's. And I think we need to start focusing, and you guys do a really good job. And I think Lindsay Strauss does, and Greg Conley, and just, there's some rock stars out there that I learn so much from every day because I'm a Twitter fiend. I'll admit it, right? So, follow me on Twitter, Dianne Marie Goldstein.
Yeah, everything's in the header, guys. Everything.
Do it now.
Yeah, and I enjoy, and it was great looking at the chat today and seeing Janine and Michael Redfern and other people that I engage with, and Southern Vapor, because I never knew, Michelle, you were a girl.
Nobody does.
Nobody
Right?
does. I did.
I think that's the whole, that was the
Vapor.
purpose behind the handle, I think.
Right?
It was.
Right?
Because women have such a hard time in making a point, and a man actually just
the mansplaining.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
We are
this way
superior.
we didn't know what it was, and it kind of worked, So
I'm Italian. I'm Italian. I had to say that.
Yeah, but I think the messaging is, we can have a whole conversation about people who smoke, people who use drugs. Tobacco users are it's a drug. I always talk about caffeine being a drug, right? It's like, it is how we speak to these issues, and it's how we make them a public health issue and not a boogeyman, right? Is, when I talk about drug regulation, because I'm actually leaving here to go to a Kratom event. And that's another one of the things that we're working on. There's plant-based drugs, and Kratom is one of them, that don't need to be regulated, right? And the FDA has done the same thing with Kratom that they're doing with tobacco harm reduction, right? They're trying to schedule it and make it illegal. And it's, the prohibition argument is the same, is let's go with the science. The science says that tobacco harm reduction saves people's lives, right?
Yes.
And if we're saving people's lives, how do we make those products safe and regulated instead of prohibiting them, which actually makes them more dangerous?
Right.
And so what you guys are doing is you are calling to attention, no different. There's a drug users union up in Canada, right? Janine will know about that. There's a drug users union. You guys there needs to be a Consumer Protection Act for tobacco harm reduction products, right? No different than Kratom does. What, the Kratom Association has done a really good job of portraying their messaging around consumer protection. What we want is products that are safe and accessible and regulated, and public education around the dangers and the harms of smoking. And yes, we need to accept that our kids are going to take risks. We're never going to be a drug-free world. We're never going to not have people who smoke, drink caffeine excessively. People die from drinking too much caffeine, right? That's why we regulate energy drinks. So I think the more that we talk about consumer protection,
Yeah.
safe products, adult choice, the sanctity of life, public
Absolutely.
education.
Well said.
Yep.
Bravo.
Well said.
Thank you, Diane.
So I got to run, and I
No
was supposed
problem.
to run at 5 o'clock, and here I am with you guys another hour later because I absolutely love.
Hey.
Are we
I love having you.
irresistible? We're just irresistible. We're
I love
beautiful
having you.
people. Well,
You guys are. So, you guys know if you ever get bored and want me back, because I
You
can,
bet. Yeah.
Always, of course.
Always, yes.
I really appreciate you. And it is Swifty. If I would have known you were in Atlanta, I would have called you because I was in Atlanta a few months ago. And Michelle, I will be in New Orleans in November.
Well, I'm not there anymore. I'm in
Oh,
Florida.
no.
I know.
What part of the South are you at?
I'm in Florida, the Panhandle.
Oh, you're at the
Panhandle.
I like the Panhandle.
Oh, you
Yeah.
ain't too far away from me, girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I'll see you,
I'm not.
Phil, in a couple weeks, and John
I
one day.
will
Yeah.
promise to see you if you stop calling me Phil and use my whole first name. How's
Philip,
that?
I will call you Philip because I'm that. I will thank you.
Diane, don't worry about it.
What I think is this. Thank you for being on the show again. And by the way, follow Diane on Twitter.
Yep.
Take a look at her feed every so often, and definitely follow LEAP, the Law Enforcement Action Partnership.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
we're
put the
at
link in the
Police for
chat.
Reform, and I love all the comments that you guys made. I've been I keep multitasking, and so thanks everybody who's here. I'm super appreciative of you guys taking your time to actually come and listen to me. It really does mean a lot, and I really enjoyed the comments and
Vice versa.
So
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
so much, Diane.
Thank
Bye,
you, everybody
Diane.
in
Soon.
chat
Bye.
for joining us. We will be back next Thursday, and I get ready, guys, because we're gonna have fun next Thursday.
Okay.
You know what it is, Tammy.
I
You know
know.
what it is.
It's trivia night.
It's trivia night.
Next
Phillip.
Thursday?
Next Wednesday. I'm sorry. Next Wednesday.
Okay.
It's trivia night. We're bringing trivia back, and Allie may be joining us. So
I need to
we'll-
deliver some serious retribution. So
You-
I'm going
yeah,
to
you
do what
do,
I can
Phillip,
to
you
be.
do.
Well,
the boys don't have a very good winning streak. So
I know.
yeah.
well, Allie and I destroyed. Let's just say that
yeah.
we've had.
So
our ups
we
and
will
downs.
see everybody next Wednesday. I need all of you guys to look into the camera right now and say goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for being here.